Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Dwayne here. Today we're going to be talking about how to play Dungeons & Dragons online in the most basic way possible, but to deliver the best possible experience for your players. So over the past week, I've been spending a lot of time with my students and my different groups that I run, trying to find that sweet spot for delivering Dungeons & Dragons online, but still maintaining that fluid, sort of fast-paced movement and really good narrative that we come to expect from playing in person. Now, what I've come to realize over the past week, and actually just in general, it's been growing for a very long time, is that the more technology that we start to throw at our online players, in fact, it can actually start to be sort of counterproductive to the overall Dungeons & Dragons experience. Being that I deal primarily with children who have autism or on the autism spectrum, it's very important that I fine-tune these tools that we have at our disposal to make sure that the players are able to participate, stay engaged, which is the big challenge, and also have fun. And over this past week, I've found that going back to basics has actually proven to be a very good thing. Let me elaborate a little bit. One of the key components of playing Dungeons & Dragons online is keeping your players engaged. That means that they're not staring off, watching YouTube videos, playing video games while you're droning on about your narrative and your story. You need to keep their eyes glued on the game, and in this case, the game is the screen, as opposed to playing in person where you can reach across the table and engage players in a variety of different ways. One way that you can go about accomplishing this is visual stimulation. So virtual tables fall into this category very, very well. You have something much akin to a video game interface that players can actually enjoy. But the other side of the fence on this is that the more you give them, they're going to be more engaged with the actual tools and mechanisms than they are playing the game. So you can actually be counterproductive and actually go the other way where you lose them. Over the past years, I've been experimenting with lots of different options, and last week specifically, I decided to pull back and go really basic with my Dungeons & Dragons sessions that I run weekly. I had 4 sessions, and all 4 sessions I ran a theater of the mind concept. Now, not without its hiccups, I did come out to some conclusions, and that by just focusing on my voice and the game at hand, using my narrative abilities and my descriptions, the players are actually more engaged in the story in the game than if I was to throw them all these virtual tools. So let's walk back and talk about what I recommend right now, if you are playing Dungeons & Dragons online, to try this experiment and see how it works for you. Let's start with DnD Beyond. DnD Beyond is a great tool, but it automates everything down to a click of a button. Now, I've talked about the danger of D&D Beyond in other videos, in that you've automated everything to the point where players aren't really learning the game, they're just learning what to click to do certain things. From a basic tool set though, it's very good. It provides everything that a player is going to need to understand the game, and if you do want to pause during those moments of gameplay to explain the game to them, even though they're using D&D Beyond, you can still do that. So you're probably asking, well, what about the virtual table? Don't we need a virtual table? I mean, don't our players need to see what's going on? Well, that's the catch, you see. If you're doing a great job as a dungeon master, you should be able to provide them enough description, enough narrative to actually not worry about the gridded format that they might be used to with virtual table. Using D&D Beyond as a reference point for distances and such, try and lean into your descriptive abilities. Lean into your power of dungeon mastering and paint that picture for them, whether it be a small skirmish or just an in-tavern meeting with an NPC. If you really think about it, it comes down to the interactions and not so much how far away they are and where they're positioned. In fact, I would argue that by putting a map in front of them, you're actually creating more of a board game style experience, and they're actually going to start to check out and not really pay attention to your narrative and descriptions because they're too focused on the visual element that's in front of them, which is your map or your beautifully curated scene that you've created in your virtual table. It can be jarring at first and can be a little bit nervous, but I think if you really focus on perfecting your craft and lean into the descriptions as opposed to putting images in front of your players, you'll find that they'll adapt fairly quickly. Mine did. So let's talk about this new feature, Dungeons & Dragons Maps, or D&D Maps, which is sort of a bolt-on experience for dungeon masters who have a pro tier subscription with their D&D Beyond account. This is a new program that's in alpha, and my guess is it's a lead up to their virtual table that we're going to be seeing next year. It's a very simple map sharing program with the ability to drop tokens onto the map. There's no measurement tools, there's no integration with D&D Beyond as far as hit points on the tokens. It's quite simply just a glorified map sharing tool with the ability for players to move tokens around. You're probably thinking, didn't you just say that you don't need a virtual table, Dwayne? Well, that's true. But if it came down to your players needing some form of tactical awareness, some way to sort of visualize or help their imagination get pushed in the right direction, I would recommend trying this out. Being that it's not a true virtual table means it's a very easy bolt-on to your D&D Beyond experience. Your players don't need to worry about signing up, creating another account, but there are a few things that I want to talk about as far as how to integrate this into your actual online experience. Right now, if you're just using D&D Beyond, you can dedicate your entire screen to it. If you're on a laptop, if you're on a PC with a full-size monitor, the player can just stare at their D&D Beyond character sheet and just tune in and listen to your words. That's the ideal experience. But the minute you throw a map program, or in this case the D&D maps, or any virtual table, you're going to be sharing real estate, or in a worst case scenario, tab flipping. Now I can tell you one thing for sure, tab flipping, when you're running programs like mine, it can become a real challenge. So here's where we're going to lean into the power of Windows. Right now, what you're seeing are actually two different browser windows, but if you're using Windows 10 and beyond, you probably aren't using their screen sharing features to their full effectiveness. So this is something that I've recently started looking at and how to sort of set up your online screens. Now, with my students specifically, I have a lot of tablet users. So in that case there, I would probably default to saying, you know what, just focus on D&D Beyond. If you have PC users who are engaging with your game via PC, this is a very simple thing to do, yet very important. What I've done is I've broken these two windows into separate tabs. So I've opened up a separate window for my maps, and I've opened up a separate window for D&D Beyond. What that allows me to do is it allows me to use the screen sharing options of Windows, and you'll see at the top there, I can select where I want this individual window to go. So in this case, I'm going to allocate it to a side-by-side sharing. Now, open up your D&D Beyond in a separate tab again, and it's going to ask you where you want that to go as well. And here, I'm going to put it right beside my maps. So if you have a dual monitor, this problem goes away. You have one for D&D Beyond and you have one for your maps. But not everybody has the dual monitor option. So in this case, use the built-in Windows screen sharing option or window sharing option and create one window for your maps, one window for your D&D Beyond. You can now switch back and forth seamlessly, and you can navigate your tokens right on your D&D maps if you want as a player or a DM. And as a player, you have access to the mobile version of D&D Beyond. What I mean by mobile version is you have your little waffle down below here, as opposed to having the full sheet. If you've used the D&D Beyond app, you're going to find it's the same thing as if you're on a mobile device or a tablet. You simply come down here to expand your waffle, and it asks you what elements of the D&D Beyond character sheet you want to access, whether it be your abilities, your actions, your spells. Honestly, I prefer this way to look at D&D Beyond. It gives you a condensed version focusing on what you need to know at that given moment, versus the desktop experience, which has just a massive screen filled with numbers and words and features. I'll give you an example here. By clicking on actions, it just pops up my actions. I'm not bombarded with all the other things that the D&D Beyond character sheet has. If I want to go to my inventory, again, just my inventory, keeping important stuff at the top like armor class and hit points. So this is how you would use a dual window experience using D&D Beyond, and if you wanted to use the maps program. Of course, if you're a player, make sure that your Dungeon Master is actually using the maps instead of just using Theater of the Mind with D&D Beyond. This is just a simple way to get back to basics with D&D. I highly recommend that you start implementing Theater of the Mind style gameplay with your groups right now, even if you're in person. I think that as we lean more to technology in the coming months and the coming years, it's going to be sort of a throwback way of playing D&D. And I think the pressure is going to be on to deliver beautiful visuals via graphics and Unreal Engine. But just take a step back, dive into some good Theater of the Mind techniques, descriptions, funny voices, stuff like that. And who knows, maybe the players will be more engaged with your game, being that they'd have less things to distract them at the table, whether that be minis or if you're playing online, more Windows tab video distractions. So I hope you all try it. Good luck out there and experimenting with how to play D&D Online, and thank you again for supporting us here at Maverick Games. I'm going to keep bringing you more videos on how I think that D&D can be really successful in educating your young children, as well as supporting children with autism and other special needs. Hi, before you go, I need your help. I'm trying to grow the exposure of what we do here at Maverick Games. My goal is to actually bring information to parents and students around the world in hopes that they can see gaming as a path forward for learning, academics, and even support of neurodivergency. Please subscribe, make sure you click on those notifications, and I hope that you'll find content here that will be helpful for you and maybe others. Thank you very much, and thanks for tuning in.